Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity is the kind of movie that makes you feel stupid for trying to talk about it and kind of makes you realize it's easier to talk about lesser movies than great ones. It's easier, and maybe this is a universal human truth, to be snarky and critical than to explain why something great moves you. I can only say the movies that affect me the most feel somehow familiar, and I could go into an analysis of themes. For instance, The Godfather is actually about capitalism, etc. And it's true, a filmmaker's job is not so much to hold a plot together or tug your heartstrings. His job is to know your expectation for a film and to play on those expectations in service of something more resonant. And that means theme is only half the equation. You are the other half. You are the eardrum receiving the filmmaker's voice. Plots and performances and technical achievements, those are nice, those are fun, but they are mere delivery devices. The very laws of physics that govern our existence all boil down to resonance between two opposing points, be they particles or galaxies. Their attraction or repulsion as they stare across the void like strangers, their recognition of, reliance on, enslavement to, imprisonment within, and escape from each other. And I ask, how is art any different? So to put a fine point on it, this is a film with the theme right there in the title, like Crime and Punishment, Unforgiven, The Road, or Shame. From here on out, I suggest if you haven't seen the movie, go see it. I prefer to know nothing about a film going into it, and I suggest you do the same. See it in IMAX 3D if you can. If you've already seen it, let's press on. For a theme to work on you properly, you need to have experienced something like it in your own life. But a great work of art is one of those that drums on something all of us have experienced but might not even know it, cutting through language and location like a sonic boom. It hits some level deep beneath your bones, and you are, for a short time, freely human. You're free. And here's where Gravity does something few movies ever does. Its entire purpose is a wind-up delivered to its final moments, hitting you in something so basic, so universal, so blindingly apparent in every day of your life, that to say that you take it for granted is to imply that you ever think about it at all. And you don't. Afterward, you might. If for nothing else, and I know I'm being vague here, if for nothing else, this makes Gravity worth seeing. You might walk out wondering about everything you see around you. But plot, I guess we should talk about that. Such as it is, the plot concerns Sandra Bullock in the role of a novice astronaut doing nothing less than surviving space for 90 minutes. She is part of a space shuttle mission which includes several fellow astronauts, including George Clooney, but during repairs on the Hubble telescope, an off-screen accident sends a debris field into their orbit, perforating everything in sight. One of my primal fears is the vacuum of space, and I don't even know why. You don't have to be an astrophysicist to feel what paralyzing, terrifying cinema the sequence is. When it's over, the survivors regroup and brainstorm to save themselves. This requires desperate jetpack rescues and trips to the nearby International Space Station and beyond, usually told in Cuarón and cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki's signature long, unbroken takes. And is there any compliment the production has yet to be paid? It's impeccable. It's monstrous. There are levels of Hollywood trickery in service to this film that I'm pretty sure involve classified technology. Hell, I can't even tell you how to get an actor to look like she's floating in zero-G. On my best day, with my best tools, I'd still end up shooting something that looked like Plan 9 from outer space. Bullock is an actor who can project earnestness like it didn't exist before her, yet she goes even beyond that here, far beyond, and into something resembling survival, as an actor, not just as a character. Yet Gravity is a flawed film, and I'm not just talking about the scientific bungling Neil deGrasse Tyson has been tweeting about all weekend. At its worst, the film feels like Star Tours, that Star Wars-themed ride at Disneyland where you hurtle through one disaster after another wearing 3D glasses while special effects pummel you with shockwaves, debris, and a circumspect sense of physics. This is as close to an actual roller coaster ride of a movie as you can get. There is even a subplot about Bullock characters' emotional wounds shoehorned in from a lesser film. Yes, it often feels like the greatest hits version of a space adventure, ticking off one cliché after another from the checklist. In fact, the effect is so surreal that one begins to suspect midway through that this whole thing might be a dream. And maybe that's the point. Like I said, some of the best movies aren't even about plots and cliches and technical achievements. Something from our show on Kubrick is stuck in my head like a splinter I can't tweeze out. You don't photograph a scene, you photograph the photograph of a scene. Maybe what I'm saying is we've all seen 2001 and The Right Stuff and Apollo 13, and we all know the score. Maybe Cuarón and his screenwriting partner, his son Jonas Cuarón, decided to embrace the cliches in service of their deeper purpose, which was hiding right there in plain sight. As credits rolled, I confess I found a corner of the theater in which to sit alone. I did not want to leave or hear idle conversation as I exited. When everyone had left and the lights came up, I walked out and down the escalators and to the street, and I walked Manhattan from 34th Street to Canal, a distance of 2.5 miles, and I felt the weight of every step. And I saw all the people and the sidewalks differently than I would have 2 hours earlier, and with less judgment than I had known for some time. If the purpose of a work is to charge you on some atomic level that frees you briefly from your many constraints, then Gravity is such a success. Time may be unkind to it, but who says great movies should last forever? So, guys, Tom, did you see it?
Let me make one thing clear to everyone that's listening is I'm the only one here that didn't see it. It came out Friday, and unfortunately, my work schedule is I work through the weekends, and it was just an impossibility. But what I had I had the pleasure of doing was watching a couple of his other films, and I think that this guy's a real special talent, and I'm really I will see Gravity, and I will see it in the theater. Billy, IMAX 3D. You're suggesting that our listeners check it out in IMAX 3D.
I would say, yeah. I would say that's you're gonna see something that you really aren't ever going to get to see any other way. None of it. I mean, not a lot of us are in that elite group of space tourists who can afford the $50,000 ticket via a Russian
not yet anyway, Billy.
Shuttle, yeah.
But the podcast is taking off.
The podcast is gonna strike gold any day now. I know. But
after we hit 1 million hits on YouTube, we get 2 cents per ad.
That's right, and we're approaching that, Billy.
We're approaching it like an event horizon. It's going to launch us into the 1%.
But listen, man, this dude has, he's up against some greatness. And you mentioned a few of them, 2001, The Right Stuff, Apollo 13. So he's got that working against him right away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And to a large extent, this is a much lesser film than a lot of those. It's lesser in scope of story and plot. It's basically a 90-minute survival film, and it is a roller coaster. You're basically pummeled senseless to the point that, by the last few scenes of the movie, it's kind of like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where you're just like, how much more can this human being take? How much more disaster and all that, like you just really want to see her survive the ordeal.
It sounds like to me that he blends in the special effects with some really good acting. Is that a fact?
Yeah, it's basically, yeah, it's Sandra Bullock's face surrounded by the most astonishing technical achievement in a film I've ever seen.
And so she's becoming special herself.
Sandra Bullock?
Yeah.
As an actress?
Yes.
In what way? What do you
Well, it seems like over the past I would say 6 or 7 years she's been taken more seriously. She's been getting more serious roles. She's in less poppy films like she was 20 years ago she was making Speed and which
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man. Oh my God!
I think Miss Congeniality really
exactly. And now it seems like she's propelled herself into a whole new world, working with just better people, including George Clooney.
I always think everyone's got those actors don't get to be where they are without having some really primal talent, and right. Everyone's got more in them than you've probably seen. So much of that doesn't depend on them; it depends on the director.
There's
like
some
a director
hope
has
coming
to.
From Billy.
Well, there's a director. There's a director out there who can get a great performance out of anyone. Right. And when we talked about it going back to the Kubrick thing, like when you look back and reflect, you realize a bunch of these actors, their best performance was because they were in a Kubrick movie, Right. So anyway.
Yeah, very true. Joe, you went to the theater.
Yes, I did. I saw it in 3D, but not IMAX. And it's one of the 2 films that I've seen in 3D that I wasn't actually incredibly annoyed at. The other being Life of Pi that we had talked about.
Right.
This film is definitely one that should be seen in 3D. He uses it well. It never gets distracting. It never becomes gratuitous. Maybe once or twice it becomes gratuitous, but it's just stunning. The first shot is Like maybe it's just because it just
It's like
happens to be the
15
first
minutes
shot.
long.
Yeah, it's like a 15-minute, and I'm not 100% on this, and maybe Billy, you could back me up on this. I'm not sure, but it seemed like it was like almost a 10-minute shot that didn't cut
Yeah,
at
it was
all.
really long, and it was
The opening shot.
yeah,
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 and it's not like an opening shot like Orson Welles' Touch of Evil going through the border or something
Right.
like that. You have to think that which is incredible in its own right. The same way with Scorsese's shot going through the Copa or whatever it is
Right.
in Goodfellas or whatever. But here you have a camera floating around in space around actors who are floating around in space, going in and out of close up and wide shot with that's completely digital renderings, animations of interstellar bodies, heavenly bodies.
Right.
It's frigging, Tom, it's mind blowing. It's fucking mind
Well,
blowing.
let me ask you
Really.
this. I mean, well, two questions, guys. One, the entire thing is in space. I mean, are we brought back down to the planet Earth? I mean,
I would say two
So,
things.
spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert, not just for the audience, but for you, Tom. I mean,
Yeah.
do you mind? I mean, basically everything you can talk about the movie in detail is a spoiler of some kind.
right, right.
So, do you want to? Do you want?
It's pretty
Okay,
much all in
let me
space.
try
It's
to
pretty much
let me try to tone it down a little bit. Let's talk about sound and music.
The, the music got a little much for me at times. Even the
Okay.
special effects got a little bit much for me. But it's
Well,
funny
what?
because he's doing like a popcorn movie,
Uh-huh. Right.
but he takes everything, the dun dun dun, the Hans Zimmer pounding,
Well, who does the music? Do we know this?
that I couldn't tell you.
But it's Hans Zimmer-esque at times.
Stephen Price is the guy's name. I admit I'm unfamiliar with his other stuff.
So am I.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's Joe is exactly right. You're not going to. This is sort of the reason you go to movies, because you're literally never going to see anything like this in your normal life. You will see people sitting across the table having coffee with each other. You might see a car chase in your time. But you're never going to be up there seeing this stuff and feel
Yeah,
so viscerally
I
like you're
remember.
there.
Wow.
I remember one time seeing this beautiful documentary on the one of the trips, one of the Apollo missions, I think. Does anybody know what I'm talking about offhand? It's like a documentary. It was
Is
like
it the
one of
Tom
the first.
Hanks produced one?
No, it was an older one. Like it was made in the 70s or 80s or something.
Mm.
And it's just gorgeous. It's actually really gorgeous. It's all film,
Right.
so it's a bit grainy or whatever. And these astronauts, and I just remember being struck by being so saddened that I'm never gonna be able to go into space. Like, I just remember watching that documentary and being like, oh, it just really hit home that we're not alive at the time where we can actually go and do that. And what a film like this does to you, especially the way that it's filmed and the way this is like as far advanced as cinematic technology has taken us to date, it's just allows you to get closer and closer to that experience,
Yeah.
and it's something to behold.
It's fun. Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, we're not a part of that generation, that will be able to do things like. And you would imagine that hundreds of years from now, if this thing lasts, that normal people might be able to travel.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, yeah, if we can survive ourselves.
Yeah,
right.
if we don't
And
blow
that's-
ourselves up, man, space is going to be awesome.
And since Max is in here, we're gonna move right past that subject.
Yeah, that subject will be covered at a later,
But this
or was
is-
covered at the last episode.
This is crazy. Is like, I mean, for me, like, obviously, I'm a big nerd, and I would wake up early in the morning when I was a kid to watch space shuttle launches on TV,
Right.
and I had the box full of Time Life magazines that covered the whole Apollo program and all that stuff. I mean, I'm a dyed in the wool space geek, and you know, it does not take much for me to choke up a little bit just at the very first shot, because if I had, if I could, I would be up there right now. And at the same time, there's nothing scarier to me than the vacuum of space, because, like, you're just in a bubble. You're in this fragile little paper bubble out
Yeah,
there.
and you get that sense, that one shot where it's early in the film, so it's not really a spoiler, right? It's kind of it's in the
Spoilery
notes to the
ring.
show, you know. Yeah, it's when she's just being projected out, and all of a sudden, the camera pans away from the sky filling, the earth filling the frame,
Yeah.
to just her like hurtling
Yeah.
into like the nothingness of
This
blackness
tiny
of,
little figure disappearing.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrifying. You know, man, I was really curious to hear what your take would be on this, and to be honest with you, Billy, I was a little bit. I guess I'm not surprised, but I was. I guess it sort of makes sense because I think that you're so taken with sci-fi and everything that you're saying and how moved you were by it
Yeah.
is a little bit like surprising to me.
That I'm not more
Only
critical of it.
Well, yeah, only in that the film's construction is
Is
not.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
not
very
so
hokey.
great.
I mean, that's
It's a beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful film, and I recommend that people go and see it. It's a remarkable achievement. It's a
I
good.
did
It's
devote
a
an
really
entire
good film,
paragraph
you know?
to its 2 paragraphs to its
I
flaws.
know, but you
And
know what?
I'm
This is
well
the-
aware
but
of
that's
it.
the-
But at the same
but
time,
that's-
you still got to go see it. Like you have to go.
Yeah, you
see
definitely
it,
do.
you know?
But at the same time, though, if this was a different sort of film,
Yeah,
with
I
that
would rail
same
against it.
construction, you would heaven help it.
Yeah, yeah. It would,
Heaven help. But you know, it's
For
fun-
sure.
But Joe, that's interesting. You know that you say that. You know, the film is hokey. Because
It's not
watching.
Let me try to explain it to you, Tom. Look, you pick up where you
Okay,
left off
fine.
there, but basically, it's essentially got the horror fault where it's like every time the person escapes the killer, it's just a new countdown starts down, and then she's get the next 5 or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. You're gonna watch her trying to escape the next time the killer comes in contact with her. So it's like a zombie movie in that sense, where it's just every time like there's a bomb ticking, and then you tick down, and it's really tense. And he's a great filmmaker, so it really works. Then she'll escape it, and then right away something else just starts over again, the same thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it gets this
And
construction.
you
is
don't you
repetitive.
don't have to be you don't have to know that much about space and physics and aerodynamics to know that all of those little ticking time bombs that she goes through are completely preposterous. Like it's like it's like, yeah, okay, well, it just so happens that jetpack ran out of air at exactly that moment, and also like
Yeah.
gravity doesn't work that way, and
Like,
inertia doesn't work that way, and all this stuff.
Like,
Well,
you know?
these things have to happen, otherwise we have nothing.
Well, that's it. I mean, but that's what's great because it goes back to like the old cliffhanger things
Right.
where, there just happens to be that vine that you hang off of,
Yeah.
like as you're going over the
The
cliff, which is so
structure of it
simple.
is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It's a pulp fiction. It's a movie serial. It's the most silly popcorn structure ever, right?
It's strange.
But my whole point is that he does that, and I it chafed. I mean, while I'm watching it, I'm that critical part of the back of my head is going, this is really ridiculous, But I'm overwhelmed by the splendor of the production and everything, and then in the final shot, I feel like what he was doing with it was kind of I could cite a bunch of filmmakers that would all sound ridiculous, but he's taking a pop art form and saying, I'm going to use all of these pop art forms the same way that Lynch does sometimes, and I'm going to use it for a different purpose. By the end of the movie, I'm going to do something with it that has nothing to do with all of that cliffhanger-y type stuff. All of that, I'm just using it to express something.
Because he never loses focus of his theme, is what you're
Right.
saying,
And-
like the theme at the heart of it. Well, this
That's
is
a great point.
I'm
Yeah,
curious
I-
about this. Actually, this is one of the things probably the only thing that I find in common with all three of the filmmakers we're going to be talking about tonight. But I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, Billy. I feel like I want to ask you more about it, but I don't want to
Well,
get the spoiler.
Tom,
right?
cover your ears.
Well, no, Billy, just do your spoiler alert alarm.
Yeah,
that goes off. Because Billy, I love that spoiler alert alarm so much. I think you're the voice on my smoke alarm that goes fire, fire,
Probably,
fire.
probably. Yeah, I mean, I just my to sidebar here. My problem with all of that is that I don't want to know anything about a movie going in, and you literally have to build a wall around your head to prevent yourself from knowing about movies before you actually sit down to watch them these days. There's so many friggin' advertisements and behind the scenes specials, and everyone, it's the old Robert Zemeckis thing that I rail on. No one wants to go to McDonald's and order a hamburger and not get a hamburger, and it's like, well, I like to be surprised. I don't think of movies as hamburgers, so that's why I rail on it. But
well, at McDonald's, or you may very well be surprised.
You might well be surprised. That's true. It might not. It's a hamburger in name only.
It's a veal burger or something. Well, I guess that's too expensive.
Yeah, go on, Billy.
If you want to spoil it, the ending of the movie is about
Don't
gravity.
give away the ending.
No, I mean, but that you can't discuss it without saying that. But it basically, you spend all this time in zero gravity in the movie, and then at the end it's like a physical sensation of gravity settles back into
I totally
you
get that, right?
And that's amazing, because he's basically used the entire preceding 85 minutes to dislocate you from your own sense of self, your own sense of gravity. And then when he brings you back into it, it's like you've physically been floating free, and it sets you back down, and you just realize that gravity is a thing. Your precious earth that you live on is all around you, and you take it for granted all the time without understanding the scope of it. I don't know. I mean, maybe this,
let me throw this
on the heartstrings of sci-fi geeks, but this is what science fiction is about for me: is hypothetical scenarios that change your perspective of the world. So.
Okay. Yeah. Let me throw this out there, because I watched an interview with him today, just one, a pretty good one actually, and he notes that the main theme that he was aiming at is adversity, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty obvious, right? So if you apply that last shot to the rest of the film and free floating and adversity and excuse me, and the personal dilemma that she had to deal with, she had the sort of the daughter thing or whatever that she was dealing with. So when you're faced with adversity, and I hate to pin this down so much, but if you in your life, when you're faced with adversity and you feel like you're free floating, the film's almost about trying to work through that to go and find your feet again. And to walk on the ground
definitely. Again. I mean, there's like something that I think anyone who spends a lot of time working on something, whether it's a painting or a short story or whatever, you find that you can sort of make yourself laugh and survive at the same time by writing about the very adversity that you deal with in creating a thing, right? So, you write about a film noir, if you're struggling and people are, you feel like you're being overwhelmed, you can write a film noir character who's constantly overwhelmed, and there's a sort of nourishment from that while you're writing, and from what I can tell, that's kind of what Cuarón was going through in making this film. Like he noted that he was going through like some serious issues personally,
like some serious, but also the making of this film, Tom, was like, he thought, as any good optimistic filmmaker is probably, like, I've been there before, like, oh yeah, this is going to be an easy shoot. It'll take, in our case, it's usually like, oh, it'll take an hour to film this scene, and then it usually ends up taking like, a full day or whatever.
He told the cinematographer, it's a very small film. We'll be in and out within a year.
Yeah, and it took him 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like to me, that. Especially with what you're saying, the free floating and like trying to get your feet back on the ground. I mean, that's just a very common and a very simple theme that anybody could relate to. I mean, and it's no surprise to me that this movie's having some great success right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's again like speaks to the sort of. It's not that I'm surprised, because I could have guessed at how much this film would have affected Billy, but like that same theme could very well be played to, a film noir, and
or if anything, or like a film about a drug addict who's like spiraling out of control, who needs to get his life together, or someone who's poor and reeling backward, and they got to get out of this mess. I mean, it's just
one of my favorite movies is Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia.
Uh-huh.
Have you guys seen that one?
I've never watched that.
I haven't either.
Oh
No.
my God, oh my God. All right, well, we got to do a Sam Peckinpah episode at some point here, but yeah, I mean, it's one of the great movies about a guy the great Warren Oates, just like disintegrating as a character in the face of nonstop adversity, you know.
Right.
But it's like it's a Mexican road movie. Like you can do, yeah, you can take that theme and you do anything with it, you know. I mean, I like that this one has that as the theme, and it works through, and I feel like it's successful. I thought the whole subplot about the daughter and all that stuff was sort of shoehorned in bullshit, but
Yeah, I mean, and that may actually see. I was looking for some more sustenance in that area, but it's just like it felt like it was overshadowed to me.
I kept thinking that it's so surreal, like how it hits the cliches one by one in such a way that you're almost shocked at how cliched it is all the way through. And I kept thinking, this has to be a dream. Like this has to be like it's gonna have like this weird. You know, I just kept thinking that it was going to turn surreal. Yeah, I thought it was going to.
You know, because you're programmed via Tarkovsky and Kubrick and all that other stuff that's going on with these, like what they do with the sci-fi movies. You know, and
Yeah.
I absolutely actually felt a little bit like that was like an element that it would have been hard, I guess, to pull off, you know, or something like that. But
It would have been
it did
nice.
feel like it felt like maybe it was missing. Like to me, actually, and I know it's a lesser film on many levels than this film, but a film like Moon really is something that lives with me more.
You bring
that,
Moon up a lot.
Yeah, I need to see it again too because I've only seen it once, but I really like what they're doing because I think that I can't speak for what you know.
Moon,
Obviously,
Moon's theme is more about like loneliness, right? And just isolation.
Isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it also has that like sort of that metaphysical aspect to it. I believe. I need to go and watch it again, but it's one that really felt like it stuck to me, you know, where like again, this is an incredible film, and I think that maybe when Cuarón was saying that, yeah, this is a small indie film and will be in and out in a year, he was probably envisioning, you know, a film the size of Moon because it's a limited cast, limited set. Except the fact is that nobody's walking around in this movie, you know, so every shot is like an incredible feat, you know, and they actually had to, like, from what I understand, they had to render the whole film before they even began shooting. Like whatever they did technically was insane, you know.
Boy,
Yes.
It's no surprise to me though that you guys are saying that there are certain elements of this film that are cliched, hokey, so on and so forth. Because like the two films that I had the joy of watching actually were both very quirky, and I mean they're definitely cliched, especially the first one that I watched. So it doesn't surprise me that he, that he's making a film like that. But both of those films that I watched, my interest was there constantly, and I was like mesmerized by.
Which ones did you see?
I saw E2, Mama Tambien.
Mama Tambien.
ESC, and Love in the Time of Hysteria.
I haven't seen that one. Is it good?
Yeah, Joe, you would absolutely love it because it's like
Yeah,
it's kind of like absurdist. It really is. It reminded me of those French films we were watching a few months back. It was just, I mean, it was just really both films are very lovely, but they're very quirky. And I'm watching these movies and I'm like I can't really see this guy making an epic science fiction film.
It's
like,
right. It's weird.
And then I was thinking, I remember because I saw Children of Men, on DVD when it came out,
which is one of my
a few years back, and I was never into that movie. Like I watched it,
I love Children of Men, man.
yeah, it didn't appeal to me. It really didn't.
Huh.
But I am in love with E2 Mama Tambien, and I'm in love with Love in the Time of Hysteria. I mean, I think they're both fantastic films.
Yeah.
And Billy, you know what? You're absolutely right, man. When you say that you would rather know nothing about a film, because one thing that I've learned, like watching all three of these directors, is just putting on their films randomly and just letting it go and not knowing anything. I fucking enjoy them a hell of a lot more.
It's great,
a
isn't it?
hell of a lot more, man. Like
Yeah.
it's just so it's wonderful. Even Babel, like what which I'm going to intro later. I mean, I never really knew what that movie was about. And I just said, screw it. I'm throwing it in there, and it's an entirely, I mean, better experience.
Oh, you haven't seen Babel before? Babel, is it Babel or
Babel,
Babel, Billy?
Babel, what is it? I
I
don't.
think it's Babel.
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 I'm going.
You haven't seen that one before,
No,
Tom?
this was the
Oh,
first time I
cool.
watched Babel. Last night I
Yeah,
watched it, and we're going to talk about it in just a little
yeah,
while. But we're
that's
we're
great.
on Alfonso Cuarón, guys. Billy, anything else about this dude you want to throw out there before we move on to Guillermo del Toro?
I recognize that it's a terrible movie.
No, no, it's not,
No, no,
man.
no.
It's a
Hold on, hold
great.
on. I recognize that, like, the movies like this, especially, I have to separate myself out into two categories. And let me tell you, that was a tough review to write. That's one of the toughest reviews I've ever had to write. It was a lot easier to write, Heaven Help Us than.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you said it, Billy, in your review, man. I have an easier when I dislike something. I'm like,
Yeah.
like my fingers don't stop typing. Like,
The words
like
just flow right out, don't they?
yeah, hatred. Well, like Charles Bukowski once wrote, "Hatred. It's the only thing that will ever last." you know, so so we all get excited about being.
Nice.
But it's also, I mean, it's tough for me to praise a movie like Gravity because I'm so keenly aware that if I had to write that screenplay, there's no way I could write all that stuff. As much like as bad a writer as I can be, I could not. If I was sitting across the table writing that with someone and they sent some of those ideas at me, I would just laugh, and they're so bad, like it's such bad ideas. And I mean, in the middle of the movie, I'm rolling my eyes at some of the stuff.
Wow.
So it's really a disarming movie for me because it completely dismantles my critical faculties while I'm watching it so that I can enjoy it completely and pretty fully. But at the same time, there's that little, the grouch in the back of my head is chomping on an unlit cigar saying bullshit. So
And I just want to say that I've been playing sort of devil's advocate a little bit here because I really had a fucking great time watching the movie. Like it was fucking amazing. Like probably the best movie going experience I've had in a long time. It's just it was amazing. Well, can I just throw one more question out there to Billy, Tom, real quick?
How about you just go ahead and throw it out there?
I'm gonna do that because I know you want to move on here.
Yeah, I hear you.
You were pretty young when Challenger blew up,
Oh,
right?
man.
7 years old.
Oh, 7. Do you remember that at all? Or
Yeah, I remember the morning. That was yeah. There's actually, it's kind of weird. That was the one morning I did not wake up to watch a space shuttle launch.
Who was the teacher? Christy McCullough was her name.
I think
Now,
so.
because this was a big deal. I was 12. I think I was 11 or 12. I was in the sixth grade, and I remember this like it was yesterday because all three sixth grade classes gathered into one room to watch
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
launch because there was a
The same thing
teacher.
happened.
It was a very proud moment, like for educators and so all the kids, like we all got together and we watched the launch live, and that horrible,
Yeah, so
horrible
did
mess
we.
happened. And I remember.
So you guys saw it live?
Oh
Live
yeah, in school
Oh my
with
god!
with
And
probably
assembled.
100 people.
Yeah, probably more on mine because I
Was
think
that
it was
pretty
like the whole-
traumatizing?
Yeah, it was.
You know what they did on my in my assembly? They just shut the TV off and then dismissed the assembly. Like so, there was like this really weird.
It was left hanging in
Confusion.
the air.
Yeah, like it was
Wow.
like you weren't sure what you saw. You know what I mean?
Wow, we had teachers that were a little bit different in my block in sixth grade, and they I remember them talking to us and they, making sure if we had any questions, which nobody. I don't remember any kid really going, yeah, I got a question. 'Cause it was a fucked up scenario.
Yeah.
I do remember a kid laughing about it,
Oh,
which was
wow,
really messed
wow.
up. Like I remember him
Like as it happened, he laughed.
But yeah, like it happened, and then he was just like he thought it was funny, but
Oh,
I mean, who knows for what reason?
Yeah, I mean,
Sometimes that's just like a nervous
Yeah.
hiccup that just bubbles to the surface.
It does happen, doesn't it, man?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I laugh at things in like incredulity when they're really horrific. Because it's almost like I can't believe what I've just seen.
Yeah, that's messed up. Joe, that was it's funny that you brought that up because I was thinking about that while you guys were talking about this movie. For some reason, whenever uh,
It's
yeah,
it,
it's there, man. Right?
it's there. I know it's there for me too. Whenever the stuff, whenever I'm thinking about, especially realistic space travel.
Yeah, but hey, listen. Out of the three dudes, I overall like. I mean, I saw two of his films, and I saw Children of Men, and I think overall, I kind of dig this guy the most, guys.
Hmm.
And
Cool.
I'm looking forward to seeing Gravity.
I think I think I agree with you there. Although I know I do like in Iñárritu too.
Are you ready for this? Iñárritu.
Iñárritu.
That's it.
It's
Uh,
so funny that Joe struggles, with the Spanish language there because, when I'm watching the movie with Bardem that what's his name did Beautiful.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm like, I think for some reason I think Bardem looks like Joe.
Thanks. Great.
Especially in No Country for Old Men.
Well, it's my hair actually is what does it in that
All
movie.
Yeah.
right, all right, Alfonso Cuarón, we're saying goodbye to you. Billy and Joe say check out Gravity. I'm gonna do it. Up next is Guillermo del Toro, and Joe's gonna give us The Devil's Backbone, and we're gonna talk about him next. Joe, do it.